The most dangerous thing happening in Formula One right now isn't a crash, a rivalry, or even a controversial penalty. It's a rule book, because for the first time in decades, Formula One is walking straight into a future that could quietly destroy the very thing that made people fall in love with racing in the first place. And almost nobody is talking about it the right way. In 2026, Formula One doesn't just reset, it rewires itself. New engines, new cars, new energy rules, new weight targets, new aerodynamic philosophy, and on paper it all sounds progressive, cleaner, smarter, more sustainable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The 2026 rules don't just risk changing racing, they risk removing it. And the scariest part? The danger isn't obvious yet, because right now everything looks fine. Teams are smiling, manufacturers are investing. The FIA is talking about innovation and efficiency. But buried inside the regulations are decisions that could turn wheel-to-wheel combat into energy management exercises, turn drivers into system operators, and turn races into quiet, strategic parades decided long before the lights go out. Let's start with the single most radical change nobody truly understands yet. The 2026 power units are built around a roughly 50-50 split between internal combustion power and electrical energy. That might sound reasonable, balanced even, but Formula One has never operated like this before. The electric component will deliver more power than ever, while the combustion engine is heavily restricted in fuel flow and output. That immediately creates a problem, because racing is no longer about who can brake later, rotate better, or attack harder. It becomes about who can deploy energy at the right time, and who can afford not to fight. Think about that for a second. If you're chasing another car, but burning energy puts you at risk later in the lap, do you attack? If defending drains your battery faster than the car behind, do you even try? If overtaking costs you more energy than it gains you position, is overtaking still racing? And before you answer, remember this. Formula One teams will always choose the fastest way to win, not the most exciting way to race. That's where the first crack appears. Because with these rules, attacking could become mathematically stupid. Energy harvesting zones, deployment limits, and lift and coast strategies won't just exist. They'll dominate. Drivers will be told when they're allowed to push, when they must defend, and when fighting is simply not worth the lap time loss. And once that mindset sets in, racing stops being instinctive and starts becoming transactional. And here's what nobody wants to admit. Formula One has already flirted with this problem. We've seen races where drivers are told not to overtake because of tyre degradation. We've seen energy-saving modes that turn flat-out laps into controlled simulations. We've seen drivers deliberately avoid battles to protect strategic windows. Now imagine that logic baked permanently into the regulations. That's the risk of 2026. And if you think this only affects midfield battles, think again, because the front of the grid might suffer even more. One of the FIA's goals with the new rules is to reduce dirty air and improve following. Smaller cars, less complex aero, more predictable airflow, all good intentions. But here's the contradiction. Those same cars will rely more heavily on precise aerodynamic balance to protect energy efficiency. That means tiny disturbances in airflow can have massive knock-on effects on battery deployment, cooling, and overall lap performance. So while cars may physically follow closer, strategically they might be further apart than ever. In other words, you could be 1 second behind and still unable to attack. Not because you lack grip, but because your systems won't allow it. And here's the part fans won't notice at first. The cars will look like they're racing. They'll be close. The gaps will be small. The graphics will say, within DRS range. But the drivers will know the truth. They'll know when a move is fake, when an overtake attempt is pointless, when the real race is happening inside spreadsheets back at the factory. If that sounds dramatic, good, it should. Because this is exactly how racing dies quietly. Not with fewer cars, but with fewer decisions made by humans. Now let's talk about weight. or more specifically, the impossible fantasy of weight reduction. The 2026 cars are supposed to be lighter, roughly 30 kilograms lighter than current machines. Sounds great until you realize the engines are heavier, the batteries are larger, the cooling systems are more complex, the safety requirements are unchanged. So how do teams hit the target? They strip everything else: paint, structural margins, mechanical forgiveness, and most importantly, driver feel. Cars become stiffer, setups become narrower, operating windows become brutally small. That means drivers won't be pushing the limit. They'll be surviving inside it. And when cars punish aggression instead of rewarding it, guess what happens? Drivers stop being aggressive, not because they're less brave, but because the cost of a mistake becomes catastrophic. Energy loss, temperature spikes, recovery penalties that last laps, not corners. Which brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all. Who actually benefits from this? The answer isn't the best racers, it's the best systems. Teams with flawless simulation tools, perfect energy modeling, accurate virtual drivers, massive resources, the ability to predict races before they happen. Sound familiar? Because we've seen this movie before. In previous regulation resets, teams that nailed the engine early dominated for years. And with cost caps now limiting recovery, getting it wrong in 2026 could lock teams into mediocrity until the next rule set. Potentially the end of the decade. That's not competition. That's survival lottery. And if you think fans will accept that, think again. Because Formula One's global growth over the last decade wasn't built on technical purity. It was built on stories, rivalries, drivers fighting machines, humans pushing beyond numbers. The danger of 2026 is that the sport becomes too clever for its own good, too optimized, too calculated, too quiet. And here's the irony nobody in charge wants to face. The more Formula One tries to engineer fairness and sustainability through regulation, the more it risks engineering predictability. And predictability is death in entertainment. Now, quick pause. If you're still watching at this point, congratulations. You're officially deeper into this topic than most paddock press releases. And since you've made it this far, you might as well subscribe, because if F1 is going to confuse itself, someone needs to explain it properly. And yes, that was your subtle reminder. Back to the point, because this gets worse. The new aerodynamic rules aim to simplify the cars. Less complex wings, more standardized elements. But history tells us something uncomfortable. Engineers always find ways to exploit grey areas, always, which means the field will still diverge, but in ways fans don't understand and drivers can't compensate for. When aero complexity dominated, great drivers could feel differences and adapt. When ground effect took over, some could extract magic from unstable cars. But when energy systems dominate, there is no feel, there is only data, and you cannot outdrive a battery algorithm. That's the cliff edge Formula One is approaching, because once driver input stops being the decisive factor, once bravery and creativity stop paying dividends, racing becomes sterile, clean, efficient, forgettable. And here's the final warning, the one that matters most. If 2026 goes wrong, Formula One won't collapse overnight. It will fade, ratings will soften, highlights will feel repetitive, new fans won't convert into lifelong ones, and by the time the sport realizes what it's lost, the damage will already be baked into a rulebook that can't be rewritten quickly. So the real question isn't whether the 2026 rules are smart, it's whether they understand why people watch Formula One at all. Because racing isn't about perfection, it's about imperfection under pressure. Humans making decisions at 300 kilometers per hour. And if the sport forgets that, no amount of sustainability targets will save it. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the 2026 rules will improve racing or quietly suffocate it? Drop your take in the comments, because this debate is just getting started. And if this breakdown made you think twice about what's coming, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this conversation matters. And if you want to go even deeper, I've got another video breaking down which teams are most at risk of failing in 2026. And the results might surprise you. That's waiting for you right now.